I've talked a little bit about spiritual tech, how there's the two sides, the spiritual aspect of it, what connects us, and then the technology aspect of it, which is by human nature, we want to grow and evolve and be better, so we're using technology to increase our value. So there's this concept about consciousness that has always eluded humanity, and it's probably going to continue eluding us depending on our interpretation and perspective on life. The reason I want to bring it up is because at our core, there is something that connects us, and what I'm qualifying that as is consciousness. There's two quotes I want to share. The first one is from Studying Vedanta, where I first heard it from Swami Sarvapriyananda, where he says, consciousness is the awareness in which experience becomes possible. So in Hindu philosophy, there are three kind of fundamentals that explain the truth behind this reality that we're experiencing, which is Sat Chit Anand, which is truth, existence, and bliss or happiness. And the reason I bring this up is because when you think about the statement, consciousness is the awareness in which experience becomes possible, there's three things. There's the experience, there's the awareness of the experience, and then there's the truth behind that awareness of the experience. I want to explain this through an example. So when we interact with each other, we don't know what's going on inside of us, right? So the deep inner workings of existence, life, just whatever makes us up, is only available to us, ourselves, right? And then we have this awareness in which we can see and observe the world around us. And then we have the experience of like interacting with things, right? So when we interact with someone, there's like two levels deep that we have to go to really understand someone or understand something that's happening in the world. And I think that's the primary point for right now that we're going to talk about this quote. The second one is from Naruto. And I love this quote from Itachi so much that I wrote it down, and let me like try and walk over here to get it. It's okay. So this is me writing it down. So Itachi said, reality is a product of chance that we call fate. The point I want to bring up with this, reality is a product of chance that we call fate. It kind of talks to how elusive the whole idea of reality is, and what we consider this reality around us is no more than our observation and a series of events that are mostly out of our control. So I'm gonna stick with that for now because I can dive deep into these two quotes for a very long time, but we're gonna try not to do that right now. So talking about the spiritual aspect of spiritual tech, consciousness talks to the root behind that spirituality that I'm trying to explain and trying to use to connect with people. So spirituality, when you mention it, people think about a sort of alternative to religion, and I want to make the distinction that spirituality, religion, science, and society are all like four different concepts, right? The reason I bring up science is because I have a strong respect for it, but a strong distrust in it as well. So science tries to explain consciousness, and there's lots of different scientists and philosophers that did do research in the field, have done research in the past, and they're kind of tackling it from a surface level, which is as far as science can start, like that's where you have to start. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not why I have a distrust in it. The distrust in science comes from essentially like people having their own opinions about stuff, and then we're just saying there's a group of scientists that are like quote unquote smart enough to validate certain research, and like the whole point we worry about credentials and stuff like that with science and with society in general is because instead of having to revalidate things all the time, we're saying that there's some source of truth that we're assigning, and the authority that comes with that truth we're saying is what takes some cognitive load off of us from being able to stress about like what's real, what's not real. So any field of industry or profession, I feel like, are all wishy-washy. So regardless of the motivation behind professions and like what they're aiming to do, I think that there's only so much that you can sort of trust what other people say and think and operate in society. So it was a big tangent. We're going to try and come back now. The main point I want to make is that we all have to be our own validators for life. We have to be our own explorers trying to find the truth behind what it is we're experiencing and why it is things are happening the way they are for us. The point about what consciousness is, I'm going to define consciousness as just the pure cosmic energy that pervades everything. And I want to say energy and matter are both founded in the idea of consciousness, and without consciousness, nothing that we see manifested around us would exist. And the same way that energy is pervasive, meaning it's everywhere, you just can't see it most of the time, our five senses are limited in what they can experience. So understanding that there is a world beyond what we can experience is important as a first step to understanding there's a limit to humans. One of the first times I dived deep into this whole philosophy of like consciousness and experience and reality and connecting with people, understanding ideas, being able to convey knowledge and store knowledge for that matter, was during my master's program where I studied natural language processing, NLP. One of the things that came out of my thesis for that degree was this idea life cycle that I created, and the foundation for it was that information contains attributes, and from those attributes we take action, and from that action we learn some knowledge, and then from that knowledge new information is created. The central concept behind this is that there's a cycle and a flow of thought that creates the basis for how you understand ideas and knowledge. And the reason I bring this up is because for us to understand others, we first have to understand ourselves. And one of the things that's happening is we're creating a lot of systems to communicate with others, and these systems have to understand what we should be understanding about ourselves first. So if we don't understand ourselves, how could we expect systems, technology to represent or effectively communicate what we want to if we don't know what it is that we're trying to communicate or believe in ourselves? It's very much a work in progress, and I might revisit in the future. I don't have an answer or like a path forward from it, so it was just a series of experiments and designs that I had gone through in the past. So there's these technologies we're creating and the journey in spirituality that we're taking to learn about ourselves. And for the world to not be as divided going to the future, I think we have to unify these two sides, which is why spiritual tech is coming around. One of the central questions we have to answer in being able to unify these two sides, the spiritual journey that we're on and the technology that we're creating to create a better life and make our lives easier, is, does knowledge exist in data? We all have been or are being introduced to more and more data that's being created by us, for us, or about us. We've all seen sort of the repercussions if that data is not handled properly. There's lots about our life that can change if that data is not managed properly. So I think there's a point about data being a commodity and an important asset to our lives. And there's one point I want to make, which is knowledge is the reality and data is an observation of that reality. So going back to our quote about consciousness is the awareness in which experience becomes possible, the knowledge is the consciousness, if you will, and the data is the experience that we're living. And our awareness of the data, the awareness of the knowledge, is our ability to take advantage of the benefits and hopefully decrease the disadvantages of operating in this world. Let's try and make some connections with everything I've been saying, because it's a lot, and a 10-minute video on YouTube can't possibly explain everything that goes into this. The key takeaways are that we experience a disconnected reality. We are all living in our own realities, and we're seeking to find our truth, our reality. And while we're on our individual journey, we're interacting with each other and making connections, forming knowledge from our experience, from the experience of others. And we've created this idea of technology that is supposed to help us do what we're doing better and faster. And I think it's our duty to see the truth behind the differences in our reality. Everyone has a sort of world that they grew up in, that they've adapted to, that they're living right now. And I'm not about changing anyone's thought process or thinking or making people think that they're right or wrong, or like, it's not even about that. It's just about, we know that we're all different and we have to coexist. I just think we're all here struggling together, so why make our lives harder, right? As we experience life, I implore each and every one of us to dive deeper, find our true selves, connect with others, and be compassionate to the struggle that we're all facing.